Hey guys, Orolu Ashunbara here. You're welcome to another episode of the Vibe Podcast. It's been a while. I've been I've been loading up to the next episode. Very interestingly, interestingly, what we're going to discuss today. I remember the day I got like inspiration and direction for like what it should be about, and I was just like wild by it. I think, like I always say every time, if you are a follower of this podcast, you hear me talk a lot about like the place of understanding and how important understanding is for life generally, and how it basically it saves you time, saves you energy. It basically gives you an advantage that you're able to learn life lessons from the most random of things. So today's episode is in that line. Do you guys it's and I think it's very important because it's a principle that of life that I think you can use to save yourself and help yourself at various points, and that you'll be better for because you understand how much this principle holds in various aspects of life. And basically, I think I'll just start from just talking about like I personally feel like agriculture is one of the most interesting things about life generally. Like, I think trees are very fascinating. Nature is generally wild. Just like think of the fact that nature balances itself like within its chaos. You have like the ecosystem or the food chain, all of those things that you learned in biology class, and it's just interesting to see like how plants, for instance, are able to take care of themselves. They're able to survive. They're able to mold themselves into what they need per time. They're able to hustle in the most simple ways. And I remember the first time when I was in school, and then my Mr. Akombi told me that biology class, and he was talking about how plants are living organisms, and they're living, not just that they grow, but they're living, and like because they grow, they are living organisms. And I was surprised and shocked. I was like, oh wow. And in that moment I sort of realized that I might have killed a couple. I might have been a murderer. But yeah, it was very interesting just to understand how deeply alive plants are. And think about animals again. This was another wild reality of another sort. But like animals, literally from the weakest to the strongest of them, they do their best to survive in whatever environment they find themselves, like regardless of if there's anything like we move. I think animals are perfect. We move ambassadors. And speaking of trees, in my school then in Bobi College, this particular tree is very popular. It's in front of the chapel. For all the ICY people here, you probably know the tree I'm talking about, as I've said, in front of chapel. And that tree is bigger than the chapel. And the chapel seats about 300 to 400 people. I think 200 to 400 people easily. Because it used to take the whole school. And just think about the fact that the tree is bigger than the chapel. And it's astonishing that by the size of the tree, that tree was once a seed. It's quite ridiculous, like how the beginning of that tree was basically like something that a person could hold in their hand. Like, do you realize how ridiculous that is? That something so small can grow into something so big, and that's the principle, like the principle of seed form, like where things start from. And I struggle to believe it. If you see the tree, you probably understand what I mean. But you don't need to have seen this particular tree. There are so many trees that you would have seen, massive trees. There are even trees that are taller than that. There are trees in California. This is a very popular place in California that has like really tall palm trees. And they use for movies a lot. Bad Boys. They use Bad Boys, I think, a couple of times. Fast and Furious. and just very tall trees, palm trees. If you've traveled by road from like interstate Nigeria, you'd have seen a lot of massive trees, like Lagos Ibadan Expressway. You see massive trees, and just think about the fact that that tree was once a seed, and that tree had to grow into that. And I think, like I said earlier, one of the smart things you can do is to learn from bare, simple things that you see, life lessons. That, like, it will save you time from learning from experience, because learning from experience is one of the costliest ways to learn, but also one of the most painful ones. Like, the cycle of life, the life of a tree, is probably the most powerful message that one can learn about change and growth. And I personally think it's a principle of life, that every tree was once a seed, and every elephant was once a calf, and every human being was once a seed, and everything starts in seed form, good or bad. And this is very, very powerful. Like, have you ever wondered how trees grow? I think the explanation of this opened my mind to just how alive plants are. So I'm sure you would have also seen trees that are very strangely shaped. Like, how does a tree decide to grow upward? How does a tree decide to grow like sideways? You get like broad trees or wide trees and then tall trees. How do they determine like the direction to go? And a lot of times it's basically about the type of tree. Do you get like trees have like their family bloodline, like the things that is expected of them. But one very interesting phenomenon in biology that sort of explains how a tree picks a direction is that a tree grows in the direction of light. Ridiculous. So I remember the day Mr. Kombi, my former biology teacher, that is now a principal, you see, that's another growth cycle, explained something called photo. Oh my God, it's not Oduduwa. This one is actually just English. Phototropism. Phototropism. You should check that out. It's PHOTOTROPISM. That was Oduduwa. And basically, it's how trees do not sense. It explains how trees do not sense the way up or down or sideways. They just grow in the direction from which light comes from. So we know that light is a strong element that a tree needs to grow. And phototropism means bending towards the light. So you bend towards the light, and the aspect that the tree senses light, it grows towards that direction. So you might have seen a tree that is under a shade, and the tree grows outside of the shade, like it curves its way out and then blossoms outside of the shade. It's a fantastic thing, and it just shows like how living trees are. Now don't worry, please just come with me. you would understand where I'm going with this, like as we go. And I'm sure you must have seen like strangely shaped trees. I remember some trees that in the night you would think it's a human being. Like there's another tree like that in Bobby College too, and in the night you be thinking that this is juju, but like then we did not know that we did not understand what Christ has given us, so we fear juju that time. But now juju we see where, but yes, decorum. But you just realize that they are shaped like in a very strange way, but it's actually a function of light. And you see when a tree is a plant, it's flexible, like it's a phase of its growth. Like, we're talking about it's from seed, and then it starts to come out of the ground, and then it starts to pick a shape. In the time when the tree is still very young, it's not fixed in its ways, it's not set in its ways. It can bend, it can move in the direction of the light, and it can grow in that way. And it can become anything, definitely of its own kind. But it's just full of life, and it picks a direction, and the light that it's exposed to determines the shape and the way that tree is going to blossom, and the direction in which it will grow, or how far it will grow, or what side it will grow, or what size it will grow into. I'm sure a lot of us, we have tried to grow things without light and realize that lights are important thing. I think I tried to plant a tree, plant a seed, and then watch it grow, but I did it inside my house, so it did not grow. But basically, it's interesting just realizing like the power of light and how a tree, as it grows in its early stages, it is flexible and malleable and has high potential to grow to any length, but the direction of light is what determines how far and what grows, what parts of that tree or what direction the tree takes. And that's very interesting. And then you realize that as the tree gets older, the tree becomes more rigid. So it's more set in its ways. It's not going to curl ridiculously again after it has been set in its ways of light. So if you now open the tree to like all the light in the world after like 3 years, it doesn't mean that the tree will now start growing in a different direction. It's not going to break free from what the direction it has already picked. It will just continue to go forward but within the direction that it has already picked. And that is very, very, very interesting. Like it's life-changing realizing that when you are younger, now let's bring it to the human context. In the context of the tree, the light that it has found has given it focus. It has shaped it, has nurtured it, has molded it into the tree that it is 3, 4, 5, whatever years down the line. And it will always be. And it's so fascinating that trees experience life just like us. Like, isn't it the same thing with like us as human beings? We are molded and we are exposed. We're molded by what we are exposed to. It shapes us, it nurtures us. And over time, we'll become rigid as individuals. There's a reason why older people can be very annoying to work with, because they are so set in their ways that honestly anything you want to say, it doesn't really concern them. They're just like, I know more than you, do you get? And I've been doing XYZ thing for the past XYZ number of years, and you cannot just come and change that. And it's a flaw, but it's a function of like being old, and it's also a strength at the same time, which is very interesting because they've seen enough. They've seen more than you, and generally, as you grow older, I'm sure everybody has noticed this, that you become less flexible, you become less risky. You're less likely to just try out something new, and that's because maybe you've been hurt at some point, maybe because you've suffered loss in this point, in this aspect of your life, on that aspect of your life, and you think that because of this experience or this light that I have seen things from, I cannot think in the other way. But obviously with human beings, we are a bit more, we are still open to change in a way that a tree is not open to change. But you see the same concept of seed form being applicable to like the whole of the human being. Like the specific traits of a human being. The way people think, people's school of thoughts, people's concentration, people's focus, people's drive. It's so interesting. Like think of how a career is birthed or talent is nurtured. It all starts from just like an idea, or say a business. Just curious, or you're just like, maybe I should try this. What if this idea? And then you nurture it, and then you do some research, and then you interact with a community of people that are doing something similar, and then you pick up that behavior. And the possibilities are endless simply because you have given light to that idea when it was in seed form. And it can be nurtured into a whole tree that is 2 to 3x the size of the chapel in front of this chapel in the Bobby College. And as is with life generally, this is applicable to both the good and the bad, which is very important that we know. Like, have you met people that are so great at what they do that you wonder if they ever learned it? It's remarkable. I think for me, Apostle Pastor is a very good example. I remember when I first joined Celebration Church, which was about 6-7 years ago, and then I remember how Pastor used to sing. And I see Pastor sing now, and you see the music that has recently released Agalio, and you just see the quality, and you just realize that as at XYZ number of years ago, it wasn't as proficient, but now it's this proficient, and you think he has been singing for a very long time. But it's just like giving light to something. giving focus to something, good or bad, but this is good. Or like, for instance, the way Pastor is articulate, and he says that it wasn't always that articulate. Or think of today, Tunde of Chess in Slum is breaking the Guinness Book Record for the longest chess marathon, and he basically speaks in one of the videos as to how he grew up in a slum and did not always know how to play chess. And today, less than 5-10 years after, or less than 15 years after, he just broke the record for the longest marathon ever without losing, which is about 60 hours. That's what he tried. The record was 58 in Times Square in the US. And just think about that. And like, it's how everything starts from seed form. Everything starts from seed form. Like, I've met so many people that when I see them, I'm like, how are you so articulate? How are you so smart? How are you so good at what you do? And also, on the other hand, you have people that have nasty behavior, or they treat people with disdain, or are not considerate, or they are selfish, or they are not helpful, or they are extremely stubborn, or they are self-centered. Do you get, like, just some traits that they are so irritating, and you wonder, how did you become so badly behaved? Or how did you become so self-centered that you did not see that this thing was making something of you that you should not make your person? Do you get, like, I think it's important to be able to catch oneself as early as possible. But when you see people, both the good and the bad, and you just think to yourself, like, how did you get this bad and no one told you that this is a terrible way of living? And it's all a function of light. I know the videographers on this, they're like, oh yes, lighting is very important. It's all a function of light / nurturing. Everything starts in seed form, and nothing is what is in its final form without being nurtured. Greatness has a seed form. Habits have a seed form. Marriage has a seed form, which is relationships and friendships. Excellence has a seed form in diligence and consistency of practice. Nothing in its current form has always been in that form. No matter how great, no matter how awful, it grew into that, and it needed an environment to grow into that. And a lot of people fall in love with the idea of the end product and hate the process. It's a very common thing. I think I've spoken about this a couple of times on this podcast. Like, we don't respect the process. We disrespect seed forms, but want the final stage. Or we are careless with the seed stage, but we want to be great. We have terrible traits that we can handle and manage at the young age, but we are careless about it, and we think that as we grow older, it will just go away. I'll just forget. I'll just change. But you don't realize that change doesn't just happen. Like, even change has a seed form. And as I round up this episode, I think one question I want people to ask themselves is, what has the capacity to make me great, but it's in a seed form at the moment? What also has the capacity to ruin my life and is in seed form at the moment? Like, just as what has the capacity to make you great, something also has the capacity to make you ruin your life. And what you nurture, what you give light, will be the making or the destruction of the possibilities in your life. Like, there is so much that can happen or cannot happen, basically because of how we nurture ourselves. And I think it's so beautiful how these concepts can be related to so many things. Can be related to business, can be related to even salvation. Like, think about the fact that Adam and Jesus are seed forms for mankind. Adam was the first Adam, and the second Adam, who is Jesus Christ, with various seeds. Even like in Genesis, to show that Jesus was not a forethought. In Genesis, a seed was mentioned, a seed that was of the woman, which is not naturally possible because women don't have seed. It's men that have seed in the production process. But basically, Jesus was also a seed, and Adam was a seed. And just how potent the seed can be, but the seed has to be nurtured. And I think I'll just follow up with another episode that we used to just basically explain a bit more. But I want you to just ask yourself, like, what am I despising? What am I not focusing on? What can I manage now? What can I kill now because it can kill me later, or kill whatever possibilities can be in my life? What are the seed forms that I'm despising in my life at the moment? Which like you're not being conscious about, whether it's good or bad. I think it's very important to be intentional about it, because time will definitely tell. Time will definitely tell. So yes, thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I've been very excited about this episode. I think it has the potential to sort of open people's minds to understand that life is realities are a result of consequences. You get like actions, seeds that have been nurtured, seeds that have not been nurtured, and we can't run away from these consequences. We live with them. And yeah, so thank you very much. Thank you very much for following this podcast. I hope this blessed you. I know it would. I also want to say that this episode can be the seed that you give to somebody else that opens the person up to like a reality of awareness or a consciousness. And maybe somebody that is very young, maybe somebody that is very old, but be willing and confident enough to give people the seeds they need or the environments they need. And this can be that environment, this word of reminder, this compendium of thoughts that is the Vibe Podcast, that is able to help people become more receptive and more reflective of life generally, and be more conscious of their decisions. So yes, I remain your host, Orelu Ashenbara Samagbenga, and I'm really happy that I was able to share this thought with you. To the primary audience, which is my children that I'm creating this for, I hope that this reminds you of what Daddy thinks, or you can ask me after you have listened to it. I might remember. No, I will definitely still have the thoughts, but I will listen with you so that I can remember. But yeah, it's just future speaking. But yes, I hope everybody has a productive day, and I hope that we continue to nurture the seeds that are able to make us great and correct the aspects of our lives that we know have the potential to put us in trouble. Because time will definitely tell. Thank you very much, and do have an amazing day. Cheers.